Vinod from joining from Bangalore, Bhargavi joining from San Diego with nice light effect and everything. And yours truly is on the East Coast this week. We have a lot to discuss this week. We discussed a little bit about the budget last time around, but this time, we're going to switch focus and focus more on some of our focus areas. That's a lot of focus in one sentence, which is energy, climate tech. So we'll have interesting developments in the last 1 week. So we'll be sharing some of our thoughts on that. But on the outset, first of all, welcome both of you guys to the show. I think condolences to all the people who have suffered losses of life and property in Turkey and Syria. Which is shocking to say the least, right? I mean, at least 20,000 people have so far have been declared dead.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a very unfortunate turn of events in last week.
Yeah, I
The
think
earthquake and tsunami in Turkey and Syria.
India has been quick to respond, and they've already sent like 6 flight loads of rescue and people, all that. Even though Turkey is not the best of our allies, from a global scenario, I think they've done the best already. Which is good that
Operation Dost is what they're calling it. Apparently, Dost is the same meaning. It has the same meaning in Hindi as well as Turkish.
Turkish.
Yes,
Yeah,
yes.
there are a lot of
Yeah.
common words, I think, between languages. Yeah, especially.
Yeah, yeah.
Awesome. So with that aside, right, I think Karthik, an
It's not
interesting.
awesome, Vinod. That's the
Hmm?
whole point.
Sorry.
It's
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 not
one of
awesome.
the biggest
It's awful.
disasters of the century,
No,
actually.
no, that's not awesome.
21,000
I'm
people.
saying that
Yeah.
aside, I'm saying apart from that bad news, I'm saying there's one interesting news which has been making the waves, which is awesome news for India, which is
Yeah.
India's large lithium discovery. Right? Maybe they've been searching for a long time, and they've discovered in the Kashmir and Jammu and Kashmir region about 10 tons of lithium, but potentially extractable, maybe lesser. But
10,
that's
10 million tons?
10 million tons. 10 tons is not going to be suffice for us only, I
Yeah,
think, in
yeah.
our lifetimes. 10 million, uh,
It's
10 million tons.
10 million or 6 million,
India,
Vinod, I think. 6 mil.
sorry, yeah, 6 million tons,
6 million
sufficient
tons.
for 1000 gigawatt hour of cells. That's the story. I think that's like a good headline story. I mean, it doesn't change anything dramatically, but at least you know that there are reserves in India. If people start searching for it, maybe we will find a lot more within our own geography. And also, right, funnily enough, finding it in Jammu and Kashmir, right, is such a
Mhm.
interesting
Already
quirk.
there is going to be so much controversy around it.
Correct. Now we'll say, our lithium reserves are mine, yours, God knows, but obviously this is in India's sovereignty territory. So let's see, that should be an interesting discovery. Everybody's excited. At least I've seen, people getting excited saying, we don't need to depend so much, at least in the short term, medium term. But that's an interesting play. Having
Do you know if this is the most significant find outside the lithium triangle?
I think outside the Chile, Australia, I think this could be if it is. I don't know about the watt hours of. We need to check the watt hours of others. Uh,
Yeah,
uh, but this is a significant find for.
it's Argentina, Chile, and Bolivia. So
Yeah,
those are the three countries which constitute, I think, about 60% of all the known lithium deposits in the world. Um, but even there, right? I think Indians have been trying to work with the Argentinians for access to some of their mines.
yeah,
Um,
yeah.
If it is
So,
6
so
million
Australia.
tons, it could actually be very high, because I was just reading something. I think Australia is number two with 2.7 million tons. Right. And I think
oh wow.
Argentina is around 2 million and China is just 1 million tons. So
No, but
That's the
reserve,
annual capacity,
that's a
or
reserve. Okay, Karthik, it could be the difference between reserves versus uh,
Extra, yeah, yeah.
capacity. Reserves, right? So,
Correct, correct. No, no, I think you're right. So
yeah,
Australia has 6.3 million reserves. China has
reserves is 6
4.5
million
million
metric.
tons reserves. So we may still be on par with China in terms of reserves.
Yeah, yeah. I'll pull up a graphic. Let me see. I can add that. Okay, how do I add a tab? Okay, got it. Okay, Karthik. Okay, I don't know if I have the permissions. Checking. Okay, I'm going to send you that. There's a interesting graphic on the reserves. Karthik, if you can pull this up, right?
sure.
Yeah. Uh, add a source. Okay. Okay, so as Karthik pulls that up, right? There's also right other interesting story around climate itself, right? I don't know how much of that we kind of put it out in the last call. There's one interesting aspect in the budget. There has been an increased allocation for the nuclear program, which is focused on the fast breeder reactor. That's another interesting angle from the budget. Maybe that was not really covered in our previous conversation. Pull that down, Karthik. Go further down. You'll find a graphic with lithium reserves. Yeah, go down further. Go down further. Further. Yeah, yeah. That's the graphic to I was going to focus on. Yeah. So you can clearly see, right, the tonnage in this, right, reserves. Australia has 6.4 million metric ton, Argentina at almost 20 million, 20 metric tons, Chile 9, United States is almost 8, Russia reserves, it's in like 1.5 metric tons. So everybody is in some form or the other, right? Like there. So I think this is significant find if you go by this graph, right? Whatever that's been found is a significant find. Yeah, and everybody is made a very small amount of production, except maybe for uh, Australia. So resources are quite high. So I think this is going to be a long time, but I think it's a good find, a significant find, if you ask me. Yeah.
I think the next question would be, how can we, how much can we extract soon?
Yeah. No, I think that will require further studies and how much of it is usable, and right. I think that's what
Correct.
it'll boil down to, Karthik. Yeah, yeah. I think, but good. At least we have some resources up the alley. At least it's a strategic thing. Yeah.
All
So with
right.
that, so I was just talking, Karthik, when you're pulling this graphic. Thorium is another interesting aspect. Since we're covering lithium, I just thought we should bring that up also because it's an energy. Right? India has a three-stage nuclear program, and thorium, right? Obviously, we have the highest reserves in the world, but we really can't use. So if there is innovation on or investments in getting to use thorium for production of electricity, right? Eventually, I think that could be a massive source of clean energy. But that's like a couple of decades away, and China has already started pilots on multiple fast breeder reactors, including a molten saltwater reactor. I think India is also in the process, and fortunately, in this budget, right, there is a massive allocation towards gone for that reactor that's being experimental reactor that's being set up. And if things go well, maybe a 2 decade cycle this is to get onto production cycles. I think we could potentially have 2050 types thorium plants that could be like a massive source of energy, sustainable source in some sense. We don't need this massive amount of burning of coal and fossil fuel. That could be another interesting aspect to come across. Yeah. So moving on from thorium, lithium to thorium, Bhargavi, there's a very positive article. Maybe because you folks are in US on the Inflation Reduction Act, and apparently that's helping in businesses adopt green practices. Are you seeing anything?
I think here green practices are anyway much more than India. So one thing is, even at a personal level, they are giving some tax ops now. It's tax credits. If you resort to solar power, and also interestingly, in the recent tax year, for Tesla, certain models of Tesla, government is giving tax credit. So it's a big boost for Tesla also, and for EV. But they selected a certain model of Tesla to give that credit.
Hmm. Awesome. So Karthik,
But when we are discussing this, I was telling Karthik about green bonds. Have you read about that?
I've not spent so much time, but I was reading about this Inflation Reduction Act encouraging businesses and green bonds is I think I remember you folks discussing, and it seemed like some amount of greenwashing going on in that. It didn't feel right when you initially spoke. I'm happy to hear out, and maybe our viewers also would love, right? Yeah.
It's not even about greenwashing. I think it is different level. But we can finish this first about this Inflation Reduction Act.
Yeah, yeah. So obviously, this is U.S. Act, right? Right, clearly. So it is apparently it's a 340 billion that's been allotted as incentive subsidies and grants, and designed for private companies to transition away from fossil fuels. Very very clear, right? Fossil fuels, they want them to move away, and this is created enough action that people are availing these incentives and slowly moving towards better practices. I mean, the question I have in my mind is this like a very short term measure? When incentives are there, people will move, and once incentives are taken away, will people come back to their practices, right, back to their own practices, right? Is it like only incentives are driving? Because the end goal, right, if it is profitable, that's when everybody does it, right, at the end of the day. Will it come to a point that these all can sustain irrespective of incentives? Or it's like, I mean, give a crude example, Swiggy, right? It's like adoption, right? They give you a massive amount of discounts, so you get adopt yourself. Will you continue it, or will you switch as soon as all those incentives are thrown out?
I think, but somewhere it is good when the some beginning is good, and some of these changes you can't go back that easily.
Hmm. Yeah. So I think
But I
that's.
think with EVs, I think the direction is very clear. As EVs become more and more capable, I think people will eventually switch to that if it is clean. But having said that, right, I think especially in the US, the energy mix will always have some element of fossil fuel in it because they have abundance of fossil fuel resources in this country, and
Hmm.
it's pretty cheap. You know, unlike in a country like India where we only produce about 15% of the fossil fuels and import the rest.
Yeah.
Um, even then, even in India, right, nobody is talking about phasing out coal. Coal is still going to be a significant contributor to the energy mix of the country, even 50 years down the line. So
No,
I
I,
think
yeah, for
leaving
developed
and moving,
is, yeah. Yeah, Karthik, for developed as developed, it will be slightly changed, different, I'm assuming. Yeah.
possibly, Vinod, but I think if the gas prices are like $1 a gallon, which they are not right now, right?
Hmm.
Um, I think there would still be a section of population, especially in the US, where they would want that freedom to be able to purchase IC vehicles and keep pumping gas into these vehicles, right? So that will still be there. But make no mistake, right? When I was here, when I left the country like in 2015 to where we are right now, um, I see a lot of Teslas on the roads, man. People ditching their Mercedes or BMWs, that the German luxury cars, right, for Teslas or Rivians, clearly with a bias towards EVs. And states like New Jersey are very progressive in terms of giving these tax credits, right? So whatever that we're seeing with the Inflation Reduction Act, right? Some of the states have already been doing in their own right.
Hmm.
So the significant tax credits, but you're right. Once the tax credits go off, what's going to happen. So the
Yeah.
liberal pockets where climate change is a significant issue, will uh, tend to one ideal, whereas the conservative belt will, be a little bit slower to move to this eventuality is what I'm thinking.
Got it. So,
Yeah,
so
but Karthik, see the Tesla guys, let's say people whoever move to Tesla now because of the tax credit, it's not going to go away that easily for the next 5 years, right? And when they have to change their cars, once you get used to driving an electric vehicle, maybe they are going to continue using that. And the
Yep.
second one is the solar power, the tax credit that they are getting now for solar power. So
Hmm.
especially in some cities in California, now the gas bill is so high, so government is giving tax credit to make your building solar. And these are very long term changes, right? Once you solar power your building, you're not going to take it out,
Hmm.
because this is a permanent fixture, right? I think that way, at least making these minor impacts, I think it's more lasting.
But Bhagvi, on the flip side, right? Like when states lose this revenue coming from the fossil fuels, what are they going to do? I think they'll end up taxing the electricity, right? I think uh, that's the only path for states to recover revenues. So the long run, it seems going to be interesting. There will be a shift, um, but I think the tax reliefs, whatever that we are getting, are fleeting.
yeah, so Karthik, interestingly, let's look at the flip side, right? The oil prices have been, way high, for some time, and then it started coming down. But l- look, right, there has no been retail reduction in India, for example, right? The retail prices have not come down at all. It's still on the high, and government's been imposing something called the what you call bonanza tax, if you wish, right, on all the oil refining companies, saying, you are making
Windfall taxes.
massive amount of profit. um, uh, so this is like very strange, right? It's like, I think as it stands, that I remember, the government keeps changing this every week, and they have been imposing, an additional tax, for windfall tax. They're calling it as a windfall tax in India, at least. So they're not
Hmm.
reducing the prices for the end customers. Um, they're making it difficult to absorb this. I mean, there's an India scenario also, right? If you look at, right, this is the US scenario, windfall taxes on crude oil everywhere. Um, and and then, I mean, I don't know what is the conundrum here. Fossil fuel, what's stopping? Nothing. It looks very weird, right? There is massive amount of money being made. Why would anybody stop from producing fossil fuel?
But I don't know if you have noticed this news about what's happening in Saudi. um, so uh, first time they are actually losing money, or they are just at break even from making oil. So it's no more profitable for the country, and they are afraid now that they will start losing money because the threshold oil prices and the oil output has reached its maximum. So I read an article on that. And so there is project which was announced now, where they are going to build a city, a large city which is a self-sustaining city. And
Hmm.
it's considered that it is mainly announced to boost the economy. because they wanted a place to give employment to all the young workforce, and the oil industry is no more attractive, and that is why they wanted another revenue to provide employment to improve the economy, and that is why this city project has been announced. So that is an interesting thing, right? We know how they have all tried to manage the oil prices and keep it high and all that, but now it seems like it's no more going to be managed pricing, or they are finding it difficult to do that, so it's falling.
Yeah, it should. I feel hopefully it should fall, but the retail prices are the same. I mean, I think this. I'm not complaining about climate change. This is about India consumption story complaint, where the prices have just remained above 100 in India INR. So it's not come down. The windfall tax, the government is pocketing it and using maybe and giving it to another pocket. So I mean that's what governments do anyway, in some sense. Yeah. So that's interesting. And Bhargavi, the project that you mentioned of, right? I think I've been also following that. It's called the NEOM, and it's like some
Yes,
150 or 160-kilometer single line project with mirrors and
correct.
sustainable and high speed, everything put together. It is looking like a
So it's like people don't have to step out of that 100-kilometer line.
correct.
uh, so everything is going to be vertically done, yeah,
Yeah, it's some crazy idea. Let's see, how that
with a
goes.
massive budget. I forgot what was the budget allocation for that.
Yeah. I think that's like a story, right? So Saudi just reminds me of Dubai, and again, the last year, 35,000 crores has from India has moved into real estate in Dubai. That's like massive, right? 35,000 crores
Wow.
and
That,
into Dubai alone.
that's the annual budget allocation for Jammu and Kashmir.
Yeah, so basically, money is moving out, and that's how you have, Karthik, your morning question. 20% LRS on anything that's going out of India except for health and education. So came
Even
back.
there they are taxing, they are not leaving even that, so
Yeah, they're taxing that also. So yeah, continuing the climate story, right? Yeah, oil companies are benefiting massively, so I don't see why they will want to switch anytime, anywhere. They may be talking about switching, but I don't think so. They're switching anything. They're possibly doing greenwashing all the time, just like a massive number of corporate companies do. They'll have a CSR program, ABC, XYZ, but I think they're not going to really switch, right? So unless consumer adoption, like Karthik was telling, right, kicks through the roof on EVs and other aspects, right? I think they are all going to stay. Yeah. Okay. Karthik, maybe you should take up taxation and other things, man. A little more. You want to talk about that?
No, I think we've talked enough about taxation, man. It's not a pretty picture.
Okay. No,
But
no.
I think broadly speaking, the complaints that we've had for quite some time not being addressed this time, but it's okay, right? I mean, that's sort of what we expected in this budget anyway.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah, I mean, there has not been
e-
any positive development which was there, but there have
yeah,
been a few negative developments for the fund
right.
industry.
Even the angel tax thing, I think that's something that we were discussing. You were not, you couldn't do it, make it last week. Bhargavi and I were discussing. I think the exception would still apply to registered startups, is what I'm assuming. I think we got some clarity on that sometime this week, right?
No, there's no clear
no, but
clarity.
still they have
DI,
not exempted all the DIPPT registered startups. It still has to go through that special tax committee, which is 500 startups in the
Yeah,
country,
yeah,
that's it. So
there's an
it's
right.
still
A
like
small
eyewash
percentage, yeah,
as of now.
This is interministerial board, and less than 1% of the companies have got through the IMB board. So you have one more
process.
layer of bureaucracy, and then you pass through that, and then only you are exempted from this angel tax, right? Like you have like 80,000 or whatever startups, you have 500 startups, who got through IMB, and DIPP registrations might be high, but that's just a startup qualification, right? Also, the startup qualification itself, right? If you look at the document for approval from that, right, that also is narrow, man. So you have equity capital of 25 crores. You can't create a subsidiary. Then you have restrictions on, you can't lend or advances to anybody. Then you can't create ESOPs. I mean, with all this constraint, how will a startup really work, right? I mean, if that's the definition I'm saying, to be called as a startup in the notification that I sent out to you all, you guys, right? I think it's somewhat, uh, I mean, a regressive stance. I think the challenge, when I look at from the other side, right? I think we all keep talking about startups, but there are also people who take advantage of all these
Exactly.
provisions.
Mm-hmm.
And they are not startups. That's where the scams
Exactly.
happen, right,
I
of the
think
past.
that's what we discussed last time also, right? There is a lot of money laundering and shell companies, all that happens.
And that unduly comes and impacts us, as a startup ecosystem, right? I think the government can't have different laws for different companies, so it's like a catch 22, or the government has to find a way around it. It's possible. Maybe you say, if any registered fund has put money, these implications don't apply. That means the SEBI AIF fund puts in, the implications completely go off for everybody. So something like that, slightly, I'm broad basing the
Which is a
options
scenario for
available.
Indian funding anyway, Vinod. So that's why
No,
they are saying, right? If you
no,
are
India.
funded by an Indian institution, you don't come under angel tax.
No, if you're funded, that is only between the institution, right? I'm saying exempt everybody who's in, as a, if a AIF is invested, I think the startup fully should be exempt for any other investments also. In a sense, for everybody who's investing into that company. You get what I'm saying, right? It's like some check
Yeah,
is being created by an Indian AIF investment. That also. But I'll tell you this other question that I have been thinking about. I mean, obviously, this speculation. At this stage, the introduction of this angel tax to bring parity on foreign investors and foreign funds, is it the government is nudging them, saying, "Boss, why don't you all of you offshore onto India?
Move to India,
Sure, move into India,
onshore.
onshore, or onshore, or get into the offshore at Gift City." I don't know which of this is there.
I know, but it can't be so restrictive, right? And suddenly overnight you can't come and say, hey, from 1st July it's going to get implemented and this is the rule, and without any notice. So I don't think it makes sense
No,
to bring
they
the likes of foreign institutional investors also into this.
look, see, I think that view is valid. I think government is not telling, you do it on July, but he's saying, I'm going to put this out. If it's for the long term, right, you better come here. Otherwise, it's not possible. It's like that. I feel like, it's not like you can move it, but you
If
have a
it
problem.
is like that, then it is like moving like China, right? You don't know what are the other implications that will come and all that. So
That is true. See, look, even though 90% of our venture capital money is from outside India, I think as an industry, as a venture capital industry, right, I think our contribution to the overall economy from the size, right, may not be that significant currently.
exactly, yeah, that's what we discussed last
So
time. See, maybe the um, money laundering practices are much more than the startup funding which is coming in. So we don't know, right? Maybe that's what they want to first protect.
yeah, possible. So I think this is going to
It's just
be,
27 billion dollars, right? Whatever funding that came in, and what 20 billion would have come from outside India last year. It's nothing.
90%, Bhargavi. But look at exports of software, right? It's almost like 1 lakh 60 crores or 70 crores or something like that. That's software exports out of the country. So if this 1/5 of the money comes, right, it's only going to increase, right? Exports of Indian software exports are higher than Saudi's oil exports. Just to give a analogy, right? I think the
How
software
much does
industry.
Saudi export? Indian software exports are 150 billion, right? Somewhere around that.
No, million, Karthik. What is million? We are talking about
I said
1
150 billion.
crore.
Billion with a B.
Ha, ha, ha. Yeah, yeah. So the oil exports of, that is more than the oil exports of Saudi, is what I'm hearing.
Saudi.
Yes,
Mm.
yes. So that means the software industry is literally, contributing quite a large pile. I think the latest value it says, 280 billion US dollars of Saudi. I think we'll
Wow.
get there. Yeah. Saudi's oil exports have reached 30 billion in March. Yeah, it's about 280 to 90 billion US dollars for Saudi. So look, we are doing so good that way. We'll get there, right? In a way.
Mm, mm.
So yeah, and we should encourage that more, and that has to come from within. Yeah, but the larger implication is government doesn't want any money to go out of India. I mean, foreign exchange
Now,
now.
especially.
Yeah,
Yeah.
very stricter view on how much money goes out of India for investments outside. So I think that's the new story in a sense. So we'll have to work within that. That means Indian money has to come into India. So that's going to be the new challenge, or funds have to
You said,
onshore.
one angle you said was to motivate the foreign investors to come set up in Gift City or maybe invest in Indian AIFs, etc., etc. Right?
Hmm.
Um, the other angle is what I'm thinking is Indian capital here to invest in real estate in India, infrastructure in India, which is the major focus of this government, right? So when there are no other options, is the local money going to route into infrastructure spree, the $1.4 trillion plan that this government has set forward for the next 10 years?
No, no, Karthik, you're true, right? That's also the clear reasoning, right? So if the money can't go out, right, where will the money go in? It will go into the stock market. It will go into bonds. It will go into the highway bonds. It will go into all sorts of government vehicles also, right? Apart from outside India, and I think that's the actual implication, right? Clearly, the money will stay within the country, and it will help in either funding private companies, or it will help in funding government projects. I think that's an implication. That's a clear implication, to hold back some money and not to let it go out, because I think the funnel was open during COVID times, and because there was a lot surplus of savings because people were not spending, and
Mhm.
I think now the tap is being slowly closed,
No,
so
no,
that
not
money
only
just
that, during that time, the foreign inflow was also high in the country. So then, after that, when the rates increased in the US, then the inflows into India also reduced.
Awesome, guys. I think we've covered quite a stretch in terms of climate and a little bit of taxation. Hopefully, the FM hears us. We've been shouting. Hopefully, there have been massive number of proposals and counter proposals, but we haven't heard anything from the government yet. So yeah, anything else we can I just want to cover some personal stuff now. Let's see, what are you guys reading, what are you doing? I think we've not covered. I usually we try and cover some things.
Yeah, I think Bhargavi, you wanted to discuss about a new type of bonds.
Yeah,
We've seen
it's
masala
not
bonds. We've
new
seen
type. Apparently, it was
uh,
tried in 1970s or something once. So, but it's just coming up with a new wrapper. It's called
mhm.
debt for nature swaps, and they are called blue bonds, not green bonds, but blue bonds. So it's interesting. And what essentially is happening is, let's say Sri Lanka has X million-dollar loan, then this this organization goes and tells them, hey, we will negotiate this debt for you on your behalf, and we will get a better interest rate for you, with a better term, essentially, right? So the country essentially saves money in repayment of the loan. And then uh, that's essentially the promise is, whatever you are saving, you have to use it for nature, ESG, climate related activities. And the old lenders bonds is swapped with this new blue bonds. So it's essentially refinancing in a different way. So that is the new financial instrument invented for climate. We have to see what is the implication of this. uh, there are a couple of organizations in Wall Street who are behind this, supporting this.
Awesome.
All
I hope
right.
it become like a synthetic bond story that we had, which resulted in the 2008 um, uh, downturn, right? A lot of derivatives and
Yeah,
derivatives.
only hope is this may not be as big, because till now whatever they have done is all very small. I think Barbados has got like $150 million refinancing or something, which is too tiny still. $150 million is nothing. So yeah, we will see how this pans out. But it's interesting how people come up with different ways to create impact and from thin air.
Awesome. Okay, I think that's a good time to wrap. I'm assuming I'm on for a trek over the weekend. I will, looking forward to that. Do a small little hike. Uh, and no, in terms of reading, I have finished the Ponniyin Selvan thing. I'm trying to hook myself onto some new books. Yeah, that's keeping things occupied for me, at least for the weekend. Yeah. What about you guys? Or Bhargavi saying I'm anyway doing a trek every day.
No, I think beaches are beautiful here. So I think every week now we are in some beach or the other. That's what we are exploring in San Diego. I'm waiting when it will be uh, c- uh, more conducive for surfing. I have got so many recommendations from people asking me to surf and see at least once in life. So let's see.
Yeah, I'm also going to do some surf lessons in April. I've already booked Karthik and Bhargavi information here already.
Awesome.
My God, where? Goa?
No, no, I'm going back to Varkala again.
Oh, nice,
Oh,
nice.
okay.
Beautiful.
It's beautiful. So I just did the same thing. I'm going to do for like a half a week, more than half a week. Yeah, yeah.
Nice. Okay.
Fantastic.
So yeah, Karthik, what about you, man? Oh,
Hey, this is the last week that I'm going to be here, so I'm going to meet. I'm going to spend a lot of time with my family here, but I'm also meeting my ex-boss, two of my ex-bosses actually. So really looking forward to that.
can we get
And
some? Can we get
reminisce.
some? Karthik?
There's a potential, there is always that agenda.
I
Okay.
know.
Okay, awesome. That's a good positive note to end on then. Yeah. See you guys on the other side of Zoom. Bye bye. Take care. Yeah.
Bye.
Bye. Bye.